Hello and welcome to another Stamp with Amy Kay Facebook Live, I guess is what we're on today. So I am going to show you today a fun card that I made with the Flowering Tulips stamp set bundle, which is one of the new ones that is available now out in the mini catalog that just started today from Stampin' Up. So yay, I'm glad that the bundle's finally available for everybody to purchase if you're interested in getting it. It's beautiful and you should be interested in getting it. At least I think it's beautiful. So hey Karen and Bree, glad you're here. Thanks for joining today and thanks for hopping on a few minutes early. I think I would have been done in time, but I do need to get my daughter off the bus at 2:30, and so I didn't want to push the time and be like, I gotta hurry, trying to get it done. So I figured I would just go live a few minutes early, and then I didn't need to rush quite so much. This doesn't take very long, but again, just wanted to make sure that I, didn't cut my time too short. That's all. So hey, Rosie and Debbie, glad you're here, and Jeannie, I'm glad you're here as well. So, oh yeah. Stop showing the stuff you're not planning to buy. You see, you just need to buy it all, and then you wouldn't, then you're good. You never need to worry about whether you have it or not because you bought it all. So, hey, Kay, thanks for joining, and Marilyn as well. All right, so this is the card we're going to make today, and it's got the tulips that I'm calling 3D because, they're not like truly 3D in that it's like a whole tulip, but they definitely stand out a bit on the card. I took a peek in the mini catalog and sort of used that as my guide for assembling them, just because the dies are a little strange when you look at them at first. It took me a minute to kind of figure it out, but once I did, they're actually pretty easy to use. Hey, Danette, glad you're joining today as well. So this is the card. So let's get going. I'll yap later. So, okay. Flowering Tulips is the stamp set bundle that we are using today. It's got some good sentiments in it, some pretty flower images, and the flowers actually layer one over the top of the other for stamping. So you can do one stamped out. We're going to do that on the inside of the inside of the card. We're going to use the smaller image here, and I'll show you how that works. But you can stamp one off, and then stamp one full strength, and have them layered one over the top of the other. So then we've got some leaves here. Again, some pretty sentiments, and it's a photopolymer set, so it's one of the see-through ones, so it's easy to stamp with and fun to use. All right. Hey, Barbara, glad you're here as well. So these are the dies, and I guess I should leave the stamp set here. So the dies, there are a couple that coordinate with images here in the stamp set bundle, so you can cut out all the flower images as well as the stem and the leaves. So they're all coordinating dies with that. There are these individual dies, which are the ones that sort of have, look like little fingers on them. I don't know how else to describe it. They're little pieces that emboss, actually, but they sort of look like feely fingers. I don't know. At least that's what they look like to me. So these actually make the 3D flowers, and I'm going to show you which ones I use to cut what as we're doing this. I also use this little piece here on the background of the card. I don't know if you noticed that, but you use that and actually cut it twice on the background panel. And I think that's about it. So these are bundled together in the current mini catalog, and you can get the bundle for a 10% discount, again starting today, so yay. And Celebration started today as well, so if your order is $50 or greater, you're going to get some free goodies from Stampin' Up for Celebration, so that's always awesome. Let me set the stamp set up out of the way. A couple of other things that I used one of my favorite die sets. I use this die in particular to cut out the sentiment, and this is the Tasteful Labels die. So this is a good one, a good basic die set from the annual catalog, which if you don't have that, you definitely need to get it. So, hey Diane, glad you're here, and thanks for joining today, and Susan as well. And then, of course, I had to use my Stitch Rectangles dies. I guess I pretty much use them on every card. So I used the third largest to cut out the background of this card. And I'll show you again how I cut two of these at the same time. And I'll show you how I did that as we get going and start doing the card. Okay. And I used the Timber 3D embossing folder to emboss the background of the card as well. All right, and that is carrying over from the mini catalog from the previous mini catalog, which was July to December. So goodness. All right, double running shoe reward points. If you are interested in ordering through me, and you should be interested in ordering from the new catalog because it's awesome. If you place an order through me, through January 11th, which is next week, Tuesday. So you've got a little over a week to do this. You're going to get double running shoe reward points from me. So my points, you get 1 point normally for every $50 that you order from me in a single order. And so you're going to get, instead, this week, you're going to be getting two running shoe reward points from me for every $50 that you order. So you're going to get free celebration items. You're going to get double points from me. And once you collect 8 of my running shoe reward points, then you get a free $40 order of your choice from me. So that's an extra added bonus. All right. So let me know if you have questions about this. The details are posted on my blog, which is stampwithamyk.com. And then we also just found out that there is a new kit that will be available starting tomorrow from Stampin' Up. Of course, it's not today, it's tomorrow, but it's a cute little kit. It's a birthday kit, and it is out in the online store for anyone to purchase. This is not one of those that you need to be a Paper Pumpkin subscriber to get. It's in their kits collection, so anyone can grab it. And it's cute birthday cards. I mean, they're really cute. It's a set of 8 cards. You get a stamp set, you get an ink spot, you have the block, adhesives, everything you need to put them together, and they're $19. And if they're while supplies last, they will be restocked, but they'll probably be out of stock for a little while if they run out. So if you want it, make sure you get on ordering it right away. And I think that's all. So let's get going on the card. Okay, my original card base, I actually have cut to 4 1/4 by 11 and scored at 5 1/2, so it's my normal top fold card. I wanted to show you that it also works the book fold card for this one, so I used a standard 8 1/2 by 5 1/2, scored at 4 1/4, thick basic white card base. And I went ahead of time. Yeah, that's a lot of aheads. And I embossed a panel of basic white cardstock with the Timber 3D embossing folder. This panel is cut to about 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and it should fit perfectly on the card front if I have everything cut correctly, which hopefully I do. Sometimes I'm not always perfect. Sometimes I mess things up. All right. And just using liquid glue to adhere the two together. That gives me a little minute to make sure that everything is adhered straight and where I want it to be before it's stuck down for good. All right, so got that part done. Next up, I'm going to show you how I did the die cutting for the little background panel. So I have got the 3rd largest of my, whoops, that was the 4th largest. That would not have been good. Let's pick the 3rd largest, Amy. 3rd largest of the stitched rectangle dies. And I'm going to take that and cut a basic white cardstock panel with it. And I actually just ran these both through at the same time. I just took the die and I'm going to put it like this. And I'm going to run them through together. And then I'm going to leave the rectangle die in place. I'm going to lift this one up, flip it over here, and then I'm going to run it back through a second time so that it will cut the other corner of it. So that is how I'm going to do this. So let me run it through the first time and I'll bring it over and, well, actually I probably won't bring it over. I'll run it through the second time and then I'll bring it over and we'll get to pick all the little dots out of it. And I forgot to grab my take your pick tool. Hopefully I have it handy somewhere so I can poke the pieces out. Hopefully y'all are enjoying your day. It turned freezing cold here in New Jersey all of a sudden. We did not get any of the snow. Some of my friends out on the coast in New Jersey, or the shore, I guess is what they call it. I don't know, I'm not from here. So friends out along the water in New Jersey got some snow. We did not get any in our area. We just got the cold temperature instead. So, all right, so I'm gonna bring this over and show you. So I ran it through the first time together. Then I'm just gonna lift off the die, make sure if there are any little loose pieces in there like that. And then I'm gonna take it a second time, put the die in place, and I'm just going to run it back through again. So that's all. I'm just keeping this in place so that it doesn't smash down my the little stitches on my die cut when I'm cutting it the second time. So that's the only reason for doing that. All right, let me get this set up over here and make sure that I'm cutting it where I want it to be and fairly straight. Okay, let's bring this back over. We're going to have little bits of basic white cardstock everywhere, just because the little dots are going to go flying, and that's okay. So they should come out fairly easily. I'm just sort of running my fingers over them, trying to get them all out, and hopefully not stuck all over everything that I'm going to be doing here later on, but they probably will be. They'll be hanging from my sweater by the time we're done, I'm sure of that. So, all right, then I'm going to pop that out of the die cut here. And I'm going to put this die away. I'll pick the little pieces out of it later, but I'm going to put that aside so that hopefully I don't lose track of that. Okay, now we got to get all the little bits off of here because we're going to be doing some other die cutting in a minute. And yep, my cutting pads are always all chewed up and nasty looking, so because I use them a ton, and I use them until they snap in two. So if you prefer to have cleaner ones than I do, then you know, you definitely can replace them sooner, but I don't know. I just use them until they fall apart. So, all right. So that is what we've got for the background of the card. And I'm going to take a couple of Stampin' Dimensionals, and I'm going to adhere that to the card front. So you get splinters in your fingers when you do that? I don't know. I don't rub very hard. I just kind of take the edge of my fingernail and like scrape it, and I have never gotten a splinter. Now that I say that, I should be knocking on everything wooden. I've never had a splinter from that before, so I don't know. What are you cutting in yours, Karen? Are you running like wood chips through it? So, hey, Mary, glad you're here. And you just bought new cutting pads? I did not. I probably should, but you know, like I said, I use them until they snap in two, and then, or crack down the side or something, and then I replace them. Oop, throwing things around. Okay, so we've got that adhered with a couple Stampin' Dimensionals to the card front. I did do all of the die cutting ahead of time for the little petals because, again, it's kind of boring to sit and watch me crank 50 billion things through the die cut machine. But I am going to show you the dies that I used and how they go together. All right, so I've got the dies here. This die cut is this one. So I cut that ahead of time. This one is the little V. Oops, I guess it goes that way. This one is this die cut. And then we have the one that's like the two bigger pieces on the side, that die cut. And a second one of the little V's. And then we need to cut 3 of these. And there are actually 3 dies, so you can cut them all at the same time if you want to. So, all right, so I'm glad that I'm not the only one. Hey, Amy and Linda and Rosie. See, I'm glad I'm not the only one who uses them until they like fall apart. So, all right, so those are the pieces. So again, basically I cut one of these, one of these, one of these, 2 of the V's, and then 3 of the single petals for the background. And that will make 3 flowers, all right? I also cut 3 of the stems, and I used 40 Flamingo cardstock, which I'm sure I'll probably forget to say, and Granny Apple Green for the stems and the leaves. So I cut 3 of the long skinny stems, and then I have cut 2 of the taller leaves and 1 of the shorter leaves. All right, so that's what I've cut for the flowers. Now, let's see if I can remember how these all go together. So they do have little score lines on them, which when you're looking at the dies, hopefully you can see there are little score lines here and here. There's a score line here, and then there are score lines here and here. And that's basically where you're going to fold these at. So they're super simple. You're just going to go fold and then fold. And you've got the starting pieces for this flower. All right, so you're just going to fold them in the middle. Before you start adhering anything together, you need to get one of the little leaves. Each one of the flowers uses one of the individual petals. The 2 larger flowers actually use the V as well. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some glue dots here. You've even used broken ones. I don't usually go, I'm not quite that bad. Usually once they break, then I decide that I probably should replace them. So, I mean, if I'm desperate and don't have any replacement ones, I definitely would do it. But I try not to get to the point where I don't have any replacements. So, all right, I'm going to take this and I'm going to adhere it. I'm trying to think of how I actually used up dimensionals on that. Never mind. Did I? I did. I put this together a couple of days ago, and I was afraid I was going to do this. I was going to forget what I had done. All right, so we've got a little dimensional that I have tucked in here. And, no, I did not. What am I doing? Good heavens. I thought that looked weird. Okay, never mind. It is a glue dot. So what I put on with the dimensional was a little V. So I bent it just a little bit, just sort of tried to round it a little bit, make it look a little more 3D. So then I took the Stampin' Dimensional and put it behind this piece. That is where you want it to be. So you want it to be under the V. And I put it down kind of in the middle. And then I'm going to stick it over the top of the small petal, maybe. See, this is why I wanted a few extra minutes, because it's going to take me a few extra minutes to remember exactly how I did all this. All right, so we've now got kind of the inside of this flower done. So all this is the single petal in the back, and then the V over the top of it with the Stampin' Dimensional stuck down in the center of it. And then I'm going to take, this is where I want the glue dots on here. I'm going to take glue dots and put them kind of in the upper corners, here, here, and then one in the middle here. And then we're going to adhere that to the inside of the larger flower. So it is a fun bundle. I think I think you should put it on your definite must-get list, Linda. So, all right. Okay, so I've got 3 glue dots on here. I've got it so that it's going to hold down the edges on this one as well as in the center. But yet we've got this popped up on dimensionals, so it's going to give it a little bit of a 3D look. All right. So then I'm going to take this and tuck it here inside my other flower. And again, adhere it so that the glue dots are sort of scooch it together, if that makes sense. So give it a little squeeze so that it's popped up just a little bit. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. And then stick your glue dots down. And then I'm going to take these and I'm going to fold them one over the top of the other. And I'm going to add glue dots down here towards the bottom of it. All right. So, okay, so I'm just going to take a little glue dot and stick it down here. You can also use liquid glue if you prefer on these. I generally tend to stick with glue dots anytime that I can, just because you've seen me do my gluing before, and I'm not a particularly neat gluing person, and I tend to make a mess. I find that I have good luck with glue dots. If I take them and I put them on and I just give them a good solid squeeze, then that usually makes them stay, and they stay very well for me. So, all right, so that is our first little 3D flower all done. Very difficult, I know. So, all right, second 3D flower, this one. Again, there's a score line right here along the side, and you're just going to fold it, score it. And then you're going to do the same thing with the little V. So it's the second largest flower here. Just going to give it a little, kind of curl it around your fingers to give it a little bit of a up in the center. And then take your Stampin' Dimensional and put it in the center of your V. And we're going to use that to adhere it to the little smaller petal that's going to go in the back. All right. And then we're going to add our glue dots again in similar locations. All right, I'm going to put them a little bit further down on this one just because this is a little bit of a shorter back than the first one that we did. So I want to make sure that I don't end up with glue dots in a spot where they're not going to stick to anything. All right, so I'm putting my 3 glue dots down. So, all right. And then we're going to just adhere the pieces together. Again, sort of lining up the bottom, making sure that my insides are inside, if that makes sense. And then using the glue dots to adhere it along the sides. And again, just giving it a little bit of a lift here in the middle to make sure that it's got the 3D look to it. And then we're going to fold this over, and I'm going to use a little glue dot right over here to adhere this to closed. So, hey Corinne, how thick do the flowers make the card? Will it go through the mail? It will. You're going to have to put like a sheet of I don't know, cardstock or something over the top of it so that it doesn't get caught in the machines, because it definitely will get caught if you send it through in just a regular envelope or an envelope without anything over it. So when I have thicker cards like this, I usually put them inside the envelope and then I cut up the backers for the designer series paper and I lay one of those over the top of it, and that's how I mailed them. So, all right, so we got the second flower all done. So, all right. And then the third flower is the littler one. And again, it's got 2 score lines, so one here and one over here. Now, technically, when I look at the die, I wasn't entirely sure. I think maybe was designed to go like that. I actually thought it looked better when it went like that. So I'm just looking at the way that the score lines work on it, and I was assuming that, like I said, I assumed that maybe it was supposed to go like that, but when I looked in the catalog, they put theirs together like this, and I thought it looked better. It looked more like a closed tulip to me, like this, than it did like this. So I assembled mine potentially upside down. I'm not going to say that it's not upside down, because it definitely could be. So, all right. I'm going to take a glue dot and adhere my final single petal to the back of this flower. All right. And I'm going to make it so that it's peeking out just a little bit, maybe. There we go. Come up and out of there. Okay. And then when I close it up, did I totally do that upside down? I did. Good heavens. Here I say I'm going to assemble it one way, and then I totally just did it the wrong way. Okay, so scratch that. This is what I meant to do. So I meant to put this in here this way around so that it's peeking out the top and not out the bottom. And then we're going to fold these two over. So we've got a little extra piece up in here. All right. I'm going to take, again with this one, I'm going to sort of round, because this is going to be my more 3D piece on this one. I'm going to round it a little bit with my fingers and put my Stampin' Dimensional back here. Okay. And then this one, I'm going to take a little mini glue dot and I'm going to roll it up and stick it right in here. And I'm sorry, my air conditioner just turned on, so, or I mean heater, I should say, just turned on. So I'm sorry. I know you're hearing all the racket. It's loud, and I apologize, but it's freezing cold here, so I'm not going to say I don't want it on because I do. All right, so rolled up glue dot. Just tuck that here along the side to make sure that piece stays stuck down. Again, we've got the little dimensional piece under the center of our other half of the flower, and then I'm going to take that and fold it. I will probably take a little glue dot and tuck it in here just to keep that bottom flap down. I wasn't sure if I was going to need it or not, so I left it off. You can always take one and stick it under like I'm going to do right here. All right, just taking the glue dot, sticking it in, squeezing it closed. All right, so that's it for the third flower. So super, super easy to assemble. And then again, I've got my die cut pieces here for the stems and the flowers all done ahead of time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of lay it out here on my card front to figure out where I want my stems to go. I'm going to have this one turned this way, I think. All right. And then I've got a couple of the leaves that we're going to, whoops, should probably scoot that out of the way and rather than wrestling with it. Stick in a couple of leaves here. I think we'll put this one like that. This one like this. I think that look all right. And then I've got my 3 stems here. So again, just going to lay these out over the top of my leaves. All right. I'll probably scooch it up just a little bit. All I'm trying to do right now is get a general idea of placement and where I want to adhere things together at. So I'm going to put my smaller one in the middle. Got one of the larger ones over here on the side, and then this one over here on this side. So probably should move that one down and around a little bit. And then what I did was I just took some glue dots, and I knew I was going to be covering up this area of it. So I just sort of started piling glue dots on it so that I could stick everything together for wrapping the twine or the ribbon around it later. So that was kind of what I did, is I piled everything up together, stuck a couple glue dots on to hold it in place, and then wrapped the ribbon around it. All right, so hopefully that makes sense when you see what I'm doing, trying to stick them together and not have them all stuck the wrong way. Maybe. Here we go. That's more what I wanted. Okay. All right, so I've got those stuck together, and then I'm going to take my, put one more glue dot on here, and I think I'll have enough to get my stems put on. If not, I can always add in another glue dot. All right, so again, I've got my flower, the tops of the flowers generally where I want them to be or land on the card. So then that helps me to know where I should place my stems. All right, so I've got one that I'm going to put over here. that one should be good. And again, these stems are wiggly enough, thin enough that you can definitely move them around. So if you get them placed and then you're like, oh, wait a minute, that wasn't exactly where I want it to be, they're very easy to move and adhere up at the top. So if, again, like I said, if you get it put on here and you're like, ooh, that's way too far over, just take it, slide it over, and stick it down with your flower later. So that's all you need to do. Then we've got the final one here, and I just want to generally get placement on it, figure out where it should be at. I'm going to pull it down just a little bit and adhere that together. Okay, now comes the fun part of wrapping the ribbon around it. I'm going to start with a glue dot here on the back. All right. Oop, I should probably lay that this way around so I don't end up sticking it to my paper. Okay, then I'm going to start with my ribbon here and stick it down. I'm going to wrap it around here a couple of times. And again, I know that I'm going to have this hidden because I'm going to tie another piece around it in a knot. So I think I'll start down here and wrap up a little bit. This to me was the hardest part because I don't know, I struggled with the ribbon and trying to get it wrapped and to stay wrapped and to be wrapped in the places where I want it to be wrapped, if that makes any sense. All right, but I think it worked out all right because again, I just did it as two separate pieces of ribbon rather than one long one and trying to tie it in a knot with the same piece of ribbon. I just adhered it to the back, snipped it off, and then tied a separate piece around it. So. Thanks, Debbie. I appreciate that. And Karen, no problem. Glad you're here and joining. I hopped on a little early just because I have to get my daughter off the bus at 2:30, and I wanted to make sure I was done by then because sometimes I get yapping, especially doing something like this, and don't realize how late it is. So, all right. So the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put another little glue dot on the back. Last thing I should say with the ribbon I'm going to do is put a little glue dot here on the back, and then I'm going to take another piece of ribbon and I'm going to give myself plenty of room just because again, you can always trim it off. It's a little harder to add to it. And going to take this and tie sort of a loose knot on the front of the card. Try to make sure it's not rolled up there, Amy. All right, take that, tie the first part of the little bow. And again, I'm just, I know I've got my glue dots under there, so I'm going to try to smoosh it down a little bit and stick it to the glue dots and make sure that I've covered all my glue dots. And then I'm going to take the ends here and finish out just doing a simple knot like that. Now I'm going to trim off the ends. And Karen, look away. I know it drives you crazy when I use this scissors. So it's what I have handy. So that's what I use, and it works. All right, so that's it. For the base of the tulips, I'm going to take those and use more glue dots, which are my favorite adhesive, or one of my favorites. I don't know. Between Stampin' Dimensionals and glue dots, they're definitely my two favorites. I'm just going to add a couple here behind the leaves so that they're stuck down to the card base. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and put one here, maybe two, underneath the ribbon so that stays securely on the card base as well. So, all right. Okay, I think we're done with that. So again, I'm just going to flip this over and again, just generally make sure that I know about where my tulip tops are going to be at and that they're in the places that I want them to be, which I think they are. And it's okay that it's hanging off a little bit down here. And then I'm going to take it and smash it onto the card front, get the glue dots stuck down well. And then I'm going to use even more of, yes, the glue dots to adhere the little flowers to the card front. So I don't cut my glue dots in half. Okay, Rosie, I have to fess up while I'm sticking on with good handling the ribbon around. Yeah, it was definitely easier for me. I tried, the first time I was playing with it, I actually started and tried to just wrap it all around and then end up with a knot at the end, and it was a total mess. I couldn't get it to stay at all. So, okay, so I have to fess up, Rosie. I'm laughing at your comment, especially because I actually, when I was first starting to stamp, I did try to cut glue dots in half. Just take my word for it, you don't do it. Just trust me on that. It won't end well for you. Unless there's some secret tip to cutting them that I don't know. Yeah, I just ended up with a very sticky pair of scissors and nothing that I was usable for adhesive. So don't do it. Anyway, that's my recommendation. All right, so we've got our flowers all put together here on the card front. The only thing we have left is Stampin' Dimensionals. Well, and I was using, again, at the time I was not a demonstrator, and I was using glue dots that were way too big for the project that I was doing. They were these big globs that were like, I don't know, a centimeter or something. So they were huge. And I thought, oh, well, I'll just be smart. I need them smaller, so I'll just cut them in half. And yeah, it didn't work out well. So don't do it. Don't try it, Rosie. Don't try it, Karen. So they do roll up. The little thin ones do. But this one, it was like a big, thick blob, and it just was a mess. So trust me, you don't want to do it. Yeah, the little thin glue dots were great for rolling up for all sorts of things, but the thicker ones do not. So, all right. So I have got the sentiment from the Flowering Tulips stamp set in basic white cardstock. Got Versamark ink, and I'm just going to stamp it here on a piece of basic white cardstock. And we're going to do a little heat embossing, which is probably my second favorite technique after die cutting. And I've got gold embossing powder from the Metallics embossing powders. And I'm going to sprinkle that on the sentiment. Give it a little flick to kind of knock off all the extra pieces. And then I'm going to close this up so that I don't have a disaster with my embossing powder. And going to pull the heat tool over here. So Stampin' Up's heat tool has two settings on it. There's a level 1 setting for drying and a level 2 setting for heat embossing. The drying works great if you're doing something like watercoloring or something like that you want to be able to dry it a little bit faster. You can use the level 1 setting. The level 2 setting is a little hotter, and it works for heat embossing, which is what we're going to do here in 1 second. So when you're doing the heat embossing, you just want to wait until it gets shiny and kind of smooth looking, and then just keep your heat tool moving around so that you don't end up accidentally burning your embossing powder, because it turns very dull brown when you do that. And then just do a quick buzz over it to make sure you got everything, which I think we did. And then I'm going to give it 1 second to cool off before I touch it, because embossing powders actually will smear if they're still warm and you try to run it through the die cutting machine, or touch it or whatever. All right, I'm going to use the larger of the circles, Stitch Tasteful Labels dies. I just realized I totally stamped a different sentiment. So we're going to do the thank you today. I'm like, why is this not fitting on here right? But it kind of fits. So I think we're going to give it a whirl. And I actually had used the thinking of you on here, and I switched it and put the thank you on the block. So I guess thank you is what we're using today. And if it doesn't die cut well, then I will restamp it and switch it to the thinking of you instead. So there. So I did mess up today more than once. So, all right, get this die cut quick. Hopefully. Trying to make sure it's lined up as well as I can get it lined up. Yeah, it doesn't look awesome. I will be restamping the sentiment with the one it's supposed to be when I actually get done with the video. But it worked, but it doesn't work great. So it's cut a little bit closer on the edges than I would like it to be. So I'll fix it and just redo the sentiment. But I'll finish the card and show you how I put it together this way. And I'll just chop it off and restamp it later. All right, I'm using a couple little Stampin' Dimensionals to adhere this to the card front. And I did forget to say, as I was putting the flowers together, if you prefer to use your mini Stampin' Dimensionals rather than the half ones like I do, those will certainly work well in the flowers as well. So you can take your pick on which one of the, whether you prefer to use the little half Stampin' Dimensionals like I do, where I chop them in half, or if you want to use the minis, either ones will fit well inside. You could probably do a full Stampin' Dimensional in there, but it may peek out the top and you may not like the look of it very well. So I'd recommend maybe sticking with the half one to start with, or one of the minis, and then if you decide you can do a full one, then stick a full one in there. So, all right, So that is it for the card front. On the inside of the card, I kept it pretty simple, and hopefully I've got the right images on the blocks for this one. So I'm going to start with the outline flower. So the outline flower I did in full strength Flirty Flamingo, and then the little layering piece I actually stamped off, and I'll show you how I did that. So, all right, so I've got this one, and again it's Flirty Flamingo ink and basic white cardstock. This is cut to 4 by 5 1/4, and there's no special way it needs to be stamped. I just sort of stamped it over here on the side, and then I'm going to ink up the layering piece, stamp it on the scrap paper, and then this line, it's like a little heart, and the little tops of the hearts line up right here in your image. So hopefully if I can get it stamped right. So you should have that sort of an effect when you get done. You can stamp it full strength and see if you like the look of that. I like the way it looked a little bit better stamped off, so that is what I did with it. I thought it gave it a little more depth, but you could definitely do it, stamp them one on top of the other, layered full strength as well. There is a little stem image here in the Flowering Tulip stamp set, and I've got Granny Apple Green ink. And just going to ink that up. And I got ink all over the block. And then obviously your the stem needs to meet up at the bottom of your flower. So however you've stamped it, just make sure they meet up at the bottom. And then I've got my tulip leaf. Tulip leaf, is that what it is? Yeah. Tulip leaf. I'm like, this is not the petal, this is a leaf. Okay. All right. And then again, I'm just going to line these up. They don't have to be stamped perfectly, but it makes it pretty easy because you can see through it. Hopefully I'm up high enough here that you can see what I'm doing. And then just stamp them right over the top like that. And that is it for the inside of the card. So I kept it pretty simple on the inside as well. Use a little Stampin' Seal to adhere the two together. And we're going to be done with the card today. And I'm glad I started a few minutes early. I'd have been rushing a lot, I think, if I'd started at 2 o'clock, trying to make sure I was done by 2:30. So this is no problem. Since I started 15 minutes early, I was able to finish up without having to race. So, all right. So that is it. Stamping that, adhering it to the inside with a little Stampin' Seal. I'm going to grab the bone folder, maybe. I didn't grab my bone folder, so, well, I'll just use my finger for today and give it a light crease here. Usually when I've embossed the entire card front like I have here, I try not to run my bone folder or my finger over the top of the embossing. I try to do it on the back side in the hopes that I don't smash the embossing too much as I'm doing this. So this is my card that I made ahead of time. This is the one we made here today. Again, I used the wrong sentiment here, so I will switch it out and put the right one on. So, but that's it. It's a really cute bundle, lots of fun to use. I love that it's got the stamped tulips in it as well. So if you prefer the stamped look, you can definitely do that instead of the 3D tulips. But they're really easy to put together, so definitely give it a try when you get the stamp set. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll be posting all the details for this card on my blog tomorrow, which is stampwithamyk.com. I will link it up in the description of this video, so you'll be able to see all the details and find links to the PDF tutorial and all that stuff as well. That'll all be out on my blog tomorrow. So thanks again for joining today. I will plan to be live on my YouTube channel around 2 o'clock Eastern Time on Friday, and then back here again live on Facebook around 2 o'clock Eastern Time next week, Tuesday. So thanks again for joining. Let me know if you have any questions. I appreciate you being here. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go put your orders in because the new catalog is awesome. That's all I have. So, all right, thanks again for joining. Have a wonderful rest of your day.